Wait, remember Grojband? It was a 2013 cartoon that followed a young garage band who just wanted to rock. But thanks to it being in such a specific era of Cartoon Network's history, you may have missed it when it initially came out. The concept of a garage band is something that feels so nostalgic to me, bringing me back to my childhood thinking that myself and my friends were going to form a band and make it big one day. Yeah, I still haven't learned how to play this thing. GarageBand has the fun spark of friends coming together with the same dream, and honestly, the ways in which they go about this, especially in creating the lyrics, it makes for a pretty entertaining show that deserves more eyes on it than it originally had. Today, let's take a look into GarageBand and see what makes this show piss off the neighbors and rock the house. The main character we focus on here in the show is Corey Riffin, as he is the lead singer and guitarist of the band. Overall, he's the guy making all of the plans and calls for what he and his bandmates do. He's a pretty good frontman to follow thanks to his passion for getting gigs for the band to play and the wild way he goes about coming up with lyrics to the music. You can feel that he really wants to succeed and take GarageBand from garages to main stages. Now, a lot of this can turn into some sort of ridiculous scheme, but it's all for the sake of the band's future, so it won't feel as sleazy as, let's say, an Ed and Eddie scheme, if you get what I'm saying. The other members of the band are Laney Penn. She's a secondary singer and mainly the bassist for the band. She fits the role of the character who is more grounded to the world around them, often coming off as the sarcastic one, but not for the lack of having the same passion as the others, just in the way that she presents her understanding of attaining stardom, or in the fact of just being a member of the band. If Corey and the others have their head in the clouds, she's firmly planted on the ground, although she still goes along for the ride when things get a bit out of control, and there may be a reason for that. Then there is Kin and Kan Kujira, twin brothers who couldn't be more visually different if they tried, with Kin being shorter in height, wears glasses, and is pretty smart, where Kan is larger, has a significant amount of strength, and isn't the smartest, especially in comparison to his brother. And these two complement each other very well while still having so many opposite features, as they both share this level of excitement that makes them infectious and an entertaining part of the show overall. Kin is both the keyboardist for GarageBand as well as someone who uses his smarts in designing and building tech for the band that can actually, hopefully, help in their performances and stage presence. Kan, well, he's good at playing the drums, and he has that perfect amount of drummer energy to keep that exciting. Honestly, these two have a really nice bond with one another, and I like the angle of having these two as twins, who are each other's best friends essentially. Together, these four make up GarageBand. Their dynamic as a whole is very much like you'd expect. There's this nice level of care that runs through them all. They share in a common passion, they aspire for the same goals, and they really just want to rock. There is definitely that leader of the band disconnect that can happen thanks to Corey really being out there with his plans sometimes, and for the fact that the way he is able to write lyrics to the songs is basically thanks to his older sister, Trina. Her character is interesting because she simultaneously fills such an important role for the band while also being against them. Look, siblings fight, argue, or just don't get along sometimes, and that trope is definitely here too. Trina has that Candace from Phineas and Ferb energy, as she doesn't want her little brother's band to succeed here. She wants to make Corey suffer and stop any chance for his band shows to happen. At the same time, however, she's basically the one writing the lyrics to all their hits because she puts all of her emotions into her writing when she needs to express herself in her diary. And that's where Corey comes in, taking what she has written down and transforming it into his own lyrics. So I guess it all cancels each other out, right? She's a bully to him and wants his career to never take off, and he's using her private emotions to make the music he can't write on his own. Either way, I think the concept of how the lyrics are created in the universe of the show is pretty cool.
You're watching GarageBand. GarageBand is about to perform.
GarageBand was created by Todd Kaufman and Mark Thornton. Both Todd and Mark had a connection to Fresh TV thanks to working on some of their productions. Fresh TV is a Canadian production company that is responsible for shows like the Total Drama franchise, Stoked, 16, and more. So Todd spoke with Fresh TV president Tom McGillis and pitched GarageBand as a series, and thanks to his passion about always wanting to create this concept, it was a go. In fact, it was such a good pitch that Todd claims in a quote to Animation Magazine that Tom really loved the idea and fell out of his chair. So this is great, the show is moving forward, and now Teletoon, Fremantle Media, and Cartoon Network all joined on in helping with the production and distribution of the series. And in that same article, you can read about the inspirations they had for different aspects of the series. Aside from naming some well-known animators like Craig McCracken, Maxwell Adams, and Gendy Tartakovsky, the thing that stands out most is the naming of the film Ferris Bueller's Day Off as an inspiration. And that feels so right when watching Grojband. It constantly has this coming-of-age charm to it that a film from John Hughes would have. Mix that with the music, the design of the characters, and some of the humor and situations in the show, and yeah, I can totally see that connection, and I feel that's a huge selling point as to why this show would be worth anyone's time. The series would officially premiere on June 10th, 2013 in the US on Cartoon Network, getting it a few months before it would even premiere in Canada, where it was made. Now, there was a big gap in the releases of episodes basically halfway through the series, with here in the US, episode 13 releasing in July of 2013, and the next episode wouldn't premiere until February of 2015 on TV. That's a pretty big gap, and it's not the greatest sign when a series gets put on hiatus like that. Teletoon would follow suit with Cartoon Network and hold the show on hiatus for some time as well. There is more to all of this that I will talk about in just a bit, so let's put a pin in that for now and come back to it. Something that is pretty cool is that the original pitched version of Grojband consisted of the show itself being 22 minutes long per story to fill one episode, versus the 11-minute stories with 2 segments per episode that it would turn into. You can even view the original pilot in its 22-minute form along with the redone version of it becoming 11 minutes, which I think is something really cool as a viewer to understand what had to get cut and what workarounds they went with to still make the episode make sense. And per Todd's own words, this was ultimately the better decision, with the energy from it coming off way better with its more limited runtime. But even though they were restricted with this timing and had to change some plans around, they used every bit of the 11-minute runtime to the best of its ability. It's a show that will toss lots of jokes at you, which aids in that energy it has. There's so many quick gags, retorts, and bits that genuinely had me laughing to an unhealthy degree. And sometimes, not so much, but it was more hits than misses. I think one of the biggest charms of the show are the characters and how they interact with one another, and with the extended cast of characters. There's a nice friendship feeling that you get from our main 4, and hey, while I enjoy Kin and Con, I feel a lot more invested in Corey and Laney. Even though Laney may come off a certain way in the show towards everyone, her care for Corey feels so genuine, like she truly believes in him and thinks Corey has what it takes to actually become a star. I mean, you're not getting a lot of depth in terms of really getting to know each character on a deep level, but you get enough of what matters to still make something entertaining and possibly even getting more invested in. And when it comes to Corey, you can understand his passion, and it's really infectious to see someone who will fight for their dreams as hard as they can. But it's not just the main cast. There are a lot of fun characters here, with maybe the most notable having to be the Newmans, which is basically the opposite of Grojband in the fact that they are just gender-swapped versions of them. The Newmans consist of 4 members: Carrie Beff, their group leader who sings and plays the guitar, Larry Knepp, who plays the bass, and their group's twins, keyboardist Kim Kagami and drummer Connie Kagami. They are basically the same other than that. Each of the group's members have similar traits to who they matched up against within each band. For the most part, both bands are rivals, and the feud between them is there, with Corey and Carrie very much seeing each other as a sworn enemy. Though I like how this can also be shown or seen as just a rivalry in the competitive nature to make a name for yourself. So there are some lighthearted moments or just less intense moments between the bands too. There's Nick Mallory, an older teen that Trina is on a mission to be with, but he doesn't care, he's Nick Mallory. He says his own name anytime he's referring to himself like he's a Pokemon, and a good amount of the time I find characters who speak in the third person to be a bit annoying if it gets overdone, but luckily I think he's used pretty sparingly as a side character that I never really felt it being too much of a problem when he's speaking. And some of his responses to Trina in the series have been some of the funniest moments in the series. I'd say though he doesn't serve too much of a purpose in the series overall, other than being a useful vessel for when Grojband ever needs him for something that he can help with, or if he's just being some sort of eye candy for Trina and all of the other girls around to fawn over. But there's one character I really want to talk about because I think they have something going on that makes you really satisfied with their character development by the end of the series. I use character development lightly, but it was maybe the most notable that I can think of. That character is Mina, and I can only describe her as Trina's lackey, but not in the sense of her really being on board and wanting to be. What she does want to be is Trina's best friend. I mean, she thinks she is, but Trina only uses that as an excuse to keep her around and have Mina do anything for her. Like, Mina's name is not even Mina, it's Bernadette, but because Trina forced her her to change it to something that rhymes with Trina, her new name is Mina. And there ain't anything meaner than that. Until the end, when she would literally let Mina die by being crushed by a meteor instead of her, as she then proceeds to berate her, blame things on her, and abandon her, all for the sake of her trying to still get Nick Mallory to fall in love with her. In the most heck yeah moment possible, the whole facade of the friendship here falls apart, and Mina snaps, finally getting to tell Trina off, and you feel so good that she gets to stand up for herself and tell Trina like it is, even throwing in her face that Nick's not even really into her. It's a nice build-up and one of the best moments from a pretty ridiculous season and, well, series finale. When working on these videos, I thank GamerSupps for giving me that boost of energy when I really need it. You can head over to GamerSupps by clicking the link in my description, and by using my code FRINGE, you can get 10% off any purchase you ever make for yourself. There's tons of great flavors, both new and old, and lots of great other things like their shaker cups, merch drops, and so much more. Use my code FRINGE every time you purchase anything from GamerSupps, and you'll save 10% off your order. It helps support the channel and you save money, so use my code FRINGE at checkout. I appreciate you. Now, another big aspect of the series is the music, you know, it being about a band and all that, but is the music actually good? Well, yeah, I'd say they are more like snippets of songs rather than full-on musical performances, but they are really fun. The lyrics are pretty decent, and again, I appreciate the unique way that Corey comes up with the lyrics, so when we do get a moment to rock out, it's pretty good. But with that being said, it really only is a moment. These are short bursts of music rather than a full song. So that's where my criticism lies, because I genuinely would love longer versions of these songs. I get that the majority of the episodes are 11 minutes long, but I still think there should have been more wiggle room to work on the length of the music. The show has a really nice style to it that feels made in a garage that fits the vibe so well, like my favorite detail being the way that each episode of the show comes to an end, where Corey looks at the camera and says, "Thanks for coming out, everyone," as the garage door is pulled down with the credits then playing over top of it. I personally think that's a really nice touch. I do find it pretty cool that as an Easter egg somewhat, basically everyone in the show is named after someone or something. Like Nick Mallory is the combined names of Nick Moore and Mallory Keaton from the show Family Ties. Laney Penn is just Penny Lane, a song by the Beatles. That one was a bit more obvious. And my favorite, Kin and Kong basically being King Kong, just without the G's at the end of their names. But on top of that, their last name being Kujira is oddly close to Gojira, which is Godzilla's name in Japanese. There's just a lot of little fun things like that in which you can find and point out from the series. Another fun Easter egg that I'll bring up is the show's connection to another Fresh TV production, and that's Total Drama Island. The band's logo here is the same skull logo that's on Duncan from Total Drama Island's shirt, so this effectively, retroactively makes Duncan a big fan of Grojband. This is mainly thanks to Todd Kaufman, who worked on Total Drama Island, and being a part of establishing the initial look for that series. So yeah, why not make this a little Easter egg later on?
You're watching Grojband. Grojband is about to perform.
There was so much care from the creators of the show and how much they believed in Grojband. You could see a lot of this coming from the Grojband blog with old posts from when the show was airing. Like here, where Todd posted that the second half of the first season's episodes were coming to Teletoon, and it was asked of fans to truly tune into these episodes live or set their cable boxes to record it so that the viewing numbers would reflect the fan base that the show had. He mentions how much viewing numbers matter to the network and could give this show a chance to get renewed for another season. Now, in general, there was no season 2 for Grojband, which is sad because the show was genuinely good, but in such a competitive viewing market, getting eyes to tune in all the time wasn't easy. At least for my experience in the US, Cartoon Network was stacked with some of its most prominent shows of the 2010s. The shows that would go on for many, many seasons and take up a large chunk of what gets played more than other shows on the schedule. Todd ends that post by putting it on the fans to show up and show support, saying, "We can do it, and this could be the most defining moment in television history. The future of Grojband depends on you." That could be a lot to put on a younger viewer, but I understand the passion to keep this band rockin'. I will say in general though, if you are a fan of the show, the Grojband Blogspot website is a really cool place to explore and see behind the scenes of how the show came together, a bunch of concept art, fun facts, and essentially a time capsule to the moment in time that Grojband was airing on TV. It all just brings this nostalgic joy to me, even if I wasn't catching the show show on the air at the time. I could just really feel like I am back in the early to mid 2010s again. The latest post on the site is a promotion of the show being put on streaming through Netflix. The post points to checking out the show on there, but with the added push of giving it high viewership and ratings, with a teased possibility that it could help kickstart a reboot, making a Netflix joke at the end saying stranger things have happened. Well, actually, Todd may have done that on accident. This post is from January of 2016. Stranger Things wouldn't premiere on Netflix until July of 2016. That is pretty funny though. But what really happened that caused Grojband to come to an end after one season is a lot more annoying than it just not having enough viewership or high ratings. So let's now point the finger at the networks here. Putting a series on hiatus is one thing. It happens here and there, and originally, Grojband was supposed to come back with more episodes the following spring, not another year after that. Well, they did technically come out in the spring of 2014, but just not on TV, but rather the Cartoon Network app, as a way to drive traffic over there. The 2010s were a weird time where stuff like this would be seen on the regular, but was never advertised enough for a lot of viewers to keep up with or understand that format yet. That seems kind of silly in today's space, but at this point it was still very new. You're used to this Cartoon Network backed show being on Cartoon Network, not the mobile app, but that's where the episodes were. All 13 of the remaining episodes for the first season just released on the app at the end of March 2014. Eventually, they would play on Cartoon Network properly, but you know, that took another year to even happen. Oh, sorry, did I say they would play on Cartoon Network? It didn't. It played on their other channel, Boomerang, where it would then end its run and officially be canceled. Now, you already saw that post about the show getting the second half of the episodes to finally premiere on Teletoon, but Teletoon was basically following the lead that Cartoon Network set, putting the show on hiatus for no reason, and then releasing the rest of the episodes eventually. They didn't have an app, or I'm sure they would have done that too, but outside of that, even with the wants of doing more Grojband, it is officially dead. With that being confirmed by Todd himself, he tweeted out, "Grojband is finished," in his response to a fan asking for another season of the show back in June of 2016. And more recently tweeted out in April of 2021 saying, "I want more episodes too. Total Drama just got 2 more seasons, so you never know, but I think a bunch of TDI fans got together and made an actual episode that got 1 million views on YouTube that proved that there was still an audience for it, so that seems to work." Now, that sounds a little more like he has some hope here, as he would love to make more Grojband, and he's kinda hint nudging fans on what they could do without directly telling them to by him saying what happened with Total Drama Island. So who knows, I doubt that we will see more come from Grojband, but for appreciating what we did get, I think that there is a solid fun show here that has some good music, lots of funny bits, some maybe a little too gross out, but for the most part, mainly funny. But it's this mix of things that just couldn't stand out enough against everything else that was there at the time. I don't fault the stuff that happened to the show because of network decisions, and ultimately, I blame all of that for making it feel like the show didn't have a proper chance to shine. I do recommend checking out Grojband if you hadn't seen it or even heard of it, because there is a lot to love about this series, and who knows, it may just be a hidden gem that you get to experience. But let me know your thoughts on Grojband in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. I'll be back soon with another video, but until then, later.